I would like to welcome from London Dr. Marcos Papadopoulos, expert in international affairs, specialized in Middle Eastern affairs. Hello, sir. At the beginning, Trump, and speaking about the money and very technical details about the money given for the army right now and the military later. Do you think this has given an American interest for the economic sanctions and relying right now for this period, which might be short for having a serious impact on Iranian position?
Yes, indeed. I do believe that. We now have it confirmed what many of us said a few weeks ago about the American involvement in the war against Iran, namely that the American military arsenal has been seriously depleted as a result of the vast amount of munitions which the American military has used against Iran. Now, if we consider how much or how many weapons America has sent to Ukraine, it really demonstrates that the American military is short of weapons. And even the American military industrial complex cannot replenish the stocks in a short period of time. So one has to now question, what is the combat readiness of the American military like? What is it currently at when the American military has used so many munitions against Iran and has sent so many munitions to Ukraine? That is something that Trump and the American military leadership is acutely aware of. And I believe that helps to explain why Trump has extended the ceasefire with Iran.
Dr. Marcos, whatever the American blockade continues or closing the strait, how would the Strait of Hormuz become a target for both sides right now?
Well, the Strait of Hormuz is, as I have said on Al Qahera on a number of occasions, is Iran's most strategic of weapons. Not just does oil pass through the Strait of Hormuz, but it is estimated that approximately 1/3 of the global fertilizer trade passes through the Strait of Hormuz. That is why we see, for example, in Europe, including Britain, a sudden increase in food prices because, as I said, the Strait of Hormuz is currently closed and much of the world market is not receiving fertilizer, which is, amongst other things, crucial for crops. So again, that demonstrates why Trump is trying to take action against Iran's closure of the Strait of Hormuz by imposing a naval blockade on the Strait of Hormuz. But Trump's blockade is illegal, of course, and is not practical in the long term. The Americans simply do not have the military resources to maintain a permanent blockade on the Strait of Hormuz, not just because of the economic damage which is being inflicted on countries across the world as a result of the situation in the Strait of Hormuz, but also even America's allies, closest of allies, are warning the Americans in private that the situation in the Strait of Hormuz cannot continue for much longer. So Trump is caught between a rock and a hard place. On the one hand, he is beholden to the Israelis, but on the other hand, he is under serious pressure, both at home and also in Europe, including Britain, and in other parts of the world. So how he can get out of what is a very dangerous situation, I really do not know.
The main question right now what we can understand from Trump extending this ceasefire on exchange to continue the blockade for the Iranian ports?
Trump, excluding the Israelis, Trump, I believe, wants a permanent ceasefire. That is why he's extended the ceasefire with Iran. But one cannot exclude the Israelis from this. And at the same time, the Iranians are making very, very stringent demands of the Americans, because for Iran, never again can they trust a word that comes from the mouths of the American political leadership. So Trump is hoping that his extension of a ceasefire will be perceived in Tehran as a goodwill gesture. And no doubt the Iranians will interpret it as the actions of a desperate man who is controlled by the Israelis. Can the Americans and the Iranians, via the Pakistanis, come to a permanent ceasefire? Yes, it is possible. But can the Trump administration accept Iran's demands in the context of the Israelis? Because Israel wants the war to continue. America went to war with Iran on behalf of Israel. And the Trump administration is in the pockets of the Israelis. So the war could erupt at any moment in time, because left to their own devices, the Americans and the Iranians can achieve a permanent ceasefire. Indeed, left to their own devices, there would never have been a war between America and Iran in the first place. But the Israeli factor is present at all times.
And according to Tasnim, the Iranian agency, right now there is no intention for Iran to participate in the negotiations. To what extent this reflect having divisions in Iran, in your opinion?
This is a way of the Iranians attempting to exert pressure on the Americans, because the Iranians have said they are open to dialogue, but under certain conditions. And so far, those conditions for the Iranian government have not been met. So they know that Trump is desperate for a permanent ceasefire, and they are attempting to exploit his desperation by informing the Pakistanis that the Iranian government will not be sending representatives to Islamabad to meet with their American counterparts. So the ball is now in the court of the Americans. How will the Americans respond to the Iranians saying that they will not participate in talks in Islamabad? The Americans may have to offer a concession to the Iranians. That way, the Iranians would turn around and say, we will now travel to Islamabad to meet with the Americans and to discuss a permanent ceasefire. So all eyes are now on the Americans. How will the Americans respond to Iran not sending representatives to Pakistan to enter into another round of negotiations with the Americans?
Speaking about another point, in London today, a meeting is supposed to be scheduled to speak about reopening the Strait of Hormuz. In your opinion, do you think this is a new breakthrough next period regarding what is happening between Iran and US? And also, what are the main points expected to be discussed in this negotiation table?
The Strait of Hormuz can only return to business by the joint efforts of America and Iran. Forget Britain, forget the European Union. Those two entities play no role in the current situation in the Persian Gulf. Yes, the European Union and Britain is being seriously affected by the closure of the Strait of Hormuz and the American naval blockade on the Strait of Hormuz. But they have, Brussels and London has no leverage over this matter. So this conference, which is taking place in London, is really amounts to propaganda. It is a way of the British ruling elite and the European Union ruling elite attempting to show to the rest of the world that they have political and economic muscle and can make an impact on the situation in the Persian Gulf. But as I said, the reality is that in relation to the Strait of Hormuz, both Britain and the EU are completely impotent, and only the American and Iranian governments can resolve the matter. But I can only reiterate, can the Americans and the Iranians resolve this when the Trump administration is controlled by the Israelis? What it could take is for Trump to step down and for other senior members of his administration, such as Pete Hegseth, to step down. That way, the Israelis would not have the kind of hold over the White House that they currently have. And in that scenario, that is when there could be a permanent ceasefire between America and Iran. But so far, there is no indication that Trump or other members of his administration will resign.
I was asking you about this point. How Israel observe Trump positions right now, especially Israel carried out attacks on Iran before the start of the ceasefire when the war was already escalating between the two parties.
I have no doubt that behind the scenes there is a great deal of tension between the Trump administration and the government of Netanyahu, because the Trump administration is trying to wriggle its way out of what is a very deep quagmire. And at the same time, the Netanyahu administration is trying to blackmail the Trump administration in order to keep it in that very deep quagmire. Iran, like Cuba, poses no threat to America, poses no threat to the American people, and yet Trump took America to war with Iran. There is no other explanation apart from Trump went to war with Iran because he is beholden to the Israelis, and he is beholden to the Israelis for numerous reasons, one of which is the Epstein files, which of course was a major honey trap operation orchestrated by Mossad. So that is why America went to war. And of course, for Israel, they very much want to see Iran destroyed by any means necessary. That enables Israel not only to increase its power in the Middle East, but also to maintain its war in Gaza and also to maintain its war in Lebanon, because Israel is slowly but surely building greater Israel. And only a few years ago, a lot of people in the world considered Greater Israel to be a conspiracy theory. Well, now the Israeli government, the Israeli leadership is openly talking about annexing part of southern Lebanon. Indeed, the Israeli military has literally demolished numerous villages, including Christian villages in southern Lebanon, in order to ensure that no Arab will live there again and to pave the way for Jewish settlers in southern Lebanon. So Greater Israel is starting to materialize as a result of the war against Iran, a war that Trump took America into because he's beholden to the Israelis.